Now to Guantanamo Bay, where for 56 days, dozens of detainees have been on a hunger strike. Lawyers for the prisoners say the health of the strikers is getting worse with each day that passes without eating. Despite deteriorating health, lawyers say the inmates are more determined than ever to continue the strike, even if that means dying. Now, military officials say they've resorted to force feeding detainees through feeding tubes. For more on the strike, Jason Leopold, lead investigative reporter for Truth Out, joins us now. Welcome there, Jason. So first off, want to start with asking you what we know about the prisoners' health conditions.
Well, what we know is what is coming from their attorneys, that their health is rapidly deteriorating. Their sugar levels are very low. Some of them are trying to or taking spoonfuls of honey to keep their sugar levels up. But the secrecy surrounding everything pertaining to Guantanamo continues. So it's very difficult to get a real accurate picture certainly from the government about what is happening. I mean, there's a clear dispute between what the government says is happening and what the prisoners are telling their attorneys. That pertains to health. It also pertains to the number of prisoners that are actually engaged in the hunger strike.
Now, in order to starve yourself for so long, you have to be pretty desperate. What do we know, Jason, about how we got to this point that the prisoners are willing to starve themselves to death, literally?
Well, it's the only form of protest that these prisoners have, and it's the one that is most effective. Back in 2005, there was another large protest at Guantanamo that actually involved, if I'm not mistaken, about 200 prisoners, or at least more than 100 at the time, and the prison was holding more than 450. And what they were protesting at that time were certainly the conditions of their confinement, as well as the indefinite detention. And they wanted to bring the prison into compliance with the Geneva Conventions. And eventually the Defense Department agreed, although they later reneged on that. It's since been brought into compliance with Geneva. And in 2006, and this is what I had reported on Monday, is there was another hunger strike. And that hunger strike was in May of 2006. And that resulted, or that was launched after some prisoners were found unconscious during when guards were walking through cell blocks, and the commander at the time had stated that these prisoners who were found unconscious took an overdose or tried to overdose on prescription medication, some who weren't even prescribed prescription medication. He ordered a shakedown of the cells and a search of all of their belongings, including their Qurans. And so after again, in May 2006, their Qurans were searched. That led to a riot and then a hunger strike at the time. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Mm-hmm. The catalyst behind this hunger strike is, again, the search of the Qurans for what Guantanamo officials and the Pentagon say they're looking for contraband. But they had not had their Quran searched for, at least according to the attorneys, for about 7 years. So it's a very, very sensitive issue.
Yeah, a very sensitive issue, but with each day that passes...
if I can just add that now it's actually gone beyond just the Qurans. Now it's a matter of protesting the fact that they're being held indefinitely with no sign of ever being released.
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, we're seeing their health deteriorate. They're being force-fed through tubes, we hear at this point, and I think we even have some video of that. What happens, Jason, if one of these detainees dies as a result of this? It can't make the U.S. look very good. What will the consequences be if that happens?
I think we're actually close to that point, Liz, that the fact that their health is deteriorating. You know, one of the side effects from force feeding is pneumonia because of fluid buildup in the lungs. And the last prisoner who died at Guantanamo last September, his name was Adnan Latif, who had been cleared for release, a frequent hunger striker. He was force-fed. He developed acute pneumonia. I'm not trying to make any connection there to the fact that he was force-fed, but it's a real possibility at this point. In fact, one of the attorneys has said that his client, a Kuwaiti named Faiz al-Kandari, told him that at least one prisoner he knows of has already attempted suicide. But again, the Pentagon will not respond to any allegations pertaining to specific prisoners. So this is already at the stage where it's an international, not only an international story, but a public relations disaster for the government. So,
speaking of that, Jason, we don't have too much time left, but I do want to ask you
sure.
because I guess the question, for some people are concerned, some aren't as concerned. People that I've spoken to that aren't say, you know what, these are potential terrorists. Many of them have posed a danger to the U.S. So what do you say to that?
I say that's not true. I mean, there are more than half of these 166 prisoners have been cleared for release or transfer. The government takes the position that everyone who is there is a terrorist. They don't acknowledge the fact that, you know, half have been cleared for release or transfer. The Obama administration had basically identified those prisoners that are either too dangerous to release. Those are some of the CIA captives, and others where the evidence against them is tainted and they can't even be brought to trial.
All right.
So the rest of them have have actually been cleared for release. Some of them were just sold to the United States for bounty, and that is certainly pertains to Adnan Latif, who I mentioned previously.
Right. We're going to have to leave it off there. I appreciate you coming on. That was Jason Leopold, lead investigative reporter at Truth Out.
Thank you.